Good morning, everyone. As I usually say, I think it's a wonderful way to start to learn Adele. We're going to learn this week is going to be connected to Purim, which is coming up in a few days, and this week's Parashat Tzaveh. I'm so excited to share it with you. It all connects. Let me share my screen with you. We're going to take a few seconds and answer this question: what is your favorite color? And my guess is that some of you guessed blue, and a Google search will show that the world's most popular color, favorite color is blue. Most people answer blue. I wonder if it's the answer because it's just easy what comes to mind, if they really like it. Maybe both. I know a lot of my decorating in my room is blue. I had blue curtains, a blue rug. I like the color blue. It's very peaceful. So does the rest of the world. And one of the questions I want to ask today is, what is it about blue that makes it so popular? Why blue? And I want to focus on three topics. One is one of the Tekhelet. Tekhelet is like, I remember when I was in school, you learn the colors when you're little. You don't really learn the color Tekhelet. Everything is kachol. But today, if you ask an Israeli kid, you show him light blue and you ask him what that is, he won't say kachol, he'll say Tekhelet. So I think it's really beautiful how you have two separate words for this color. And I think after listening to the Zoom, we'll understand how it's really a word, a color which deserves its own word and place of respect, not just light blue, its own separate word. So we'll talk about that. We're also going to talk about the Tekhelet factory. I always like giving tips and suggestions of places to go visit with your family when you come to Israel. The Tekhelet factory, very close to Jerusalem, amazing, a lot of fun. I recommend that. And also what color were the Duchat. Light blue, Tekhelet, is mentioned 49 times in the Tanakh, 43 times in the context of the Mishkan, Bet HaMikdash. And I want to look with you at this picture of the Kohen Gadol. So we see he's wearing his me'il, which is made completely of Tekhelet. We also notice from looking at him that there are other parts about him which are the light blue color. Here, the strings that are connected to the Choshen HaMishpat are light blue. And I need to thank Barkai for that. I didn't really know that until I started teaching there. One of the great things about Barkai is you learn all the Plakim and the Pesukim. And I taught Sevet Shemot. So I taught the parashiyot having to do with the Mishkan, Trumat, Tzaveh, Vaikal, Pekudah. And one of the things we taught is connecting the Choshen Mishpat to the Kohen with strings of Tekhelet. So that was nice to discover. I also want to point out the seats has these light blue Tekhelet strings which connected to the Kohen Gadol's mitznefet. And we also have on the ephod, we had Tekhelet. And if you look at the bottom of the Kohen's Me'il, we would have Limonim and Pa'amonim, and one of the colors in the Limonim was Tekhelet. So we see it's used a lot in the Mikdash and having to do with the clothing of the Kohanim. Also, reference in Megillat Esther, which usually passes us by, the party of Achashverosh, his Mishteh, one of the colors there was Tekhelet. He's a king, it's royal color of royalty, and that color was there. Color in the ancient world was something that was very expensive. And there were two ways to produce color, either from animal or plant dyes. And usually it was a job that was done at the outskirts of the city because it was very, very, very smelly. My brother Bert, he would come to my class in Barkai, and when I would teach the kids about Tekhelet, he would make Tekhelet with us, and we're going to talk about how you make it. And there was always a point where he would mix something and everyone would hold their nose and run to the window from the smell. It's a very smelly thing. So it was a smelly job to do. And it was expensive to buy clothing that was colored. In Masachat Nezikin, it talks about what if you have somebody that goes to the dyer and tells him you did it wrong. I wanted the article of clothing dyed this way, done in this way. And then the dyer says, but what about all this valuable dye that I wasted? You have to pay me for that. So who's responsible? So that's something that's discussed because it really was very important how the clothing is going to be dyed. Tekhelet and Argaman were the colors of royalty. We see here royalty and dark blue robes. This is what I wanted to say. That I don't remember anymore. Okay, I know I was going to forget. I hope it comes back to me. Okay, so Tekhelet when we think of that word, a lot of things that come to mind for people is the mitzvah of tzitzit, that it says, Hashem says, "Daber b'nei Yisrael v'mata lahem v'asu lahem tzitzit al kanfei bigdeihem ledarotam v'natnu tzitzit hakanaf b'tiyat techelet." You need to put a string of techelet, of light blue, on your tzitzit. Now, until the 1980s, we didn't know how to make techelet. It was something that was lost hundreds of years. Nowadays, we know how. So I encourage everyone to encourage their husbands, sons to wear Tekhelet, because it's such a wonderful, wonderful mitzvah that we can do again. A lot of times when I learn about the mitzvot, I love them so much, like I wish I could do it. So I think this is really wonderful mitzvah for the men that have it. And here's something that a really nice connection. So here's the Kohen Gadol, and we said that, so here you see his me'il made of Tekhelet, and the tzitz on top is taru strings of Tekhelet. Notice the relationship between the word tzitz and tzitzit. It's very, very similar. And it's on purpose that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says he wants every man to have one string of techelet on his tzitzit, because what would a person think of if they have the string? And also we said it's very expensive, not everyone could have it. And it was only royalty wore it, that everyone's royalty. And especially if they're wearing tzitzit and it's almost the same word, they could feel like they're the Kohen Gadol. And we know Hashem tells Bnei Yisrael, Atem tiyuli mamlechet kohanim begoy kadosh, that you're all a nation of priests to me. And it's such a beautiful idea that every person in the nation could be on this spiritual level and can connect to God in this way. So that's primarily where the importance of Tekhelet is today, because we don't have the Beit HaMikdash and the Kohen Gadol, but we still have tzitzit. And for us to be able to do the mitzvah the way it's supposed to is really a significant thing. Now, how do you make the Tekhelet that you need for tzitzit? So I want to take you back thousands of years to what is today Lebanon, and what was then known as Sidon, Sod and Sidon. Sidon over here, and Tyre. And the people that lived there were Canaanim, but they were known as the Phoenicians, and that word in Greek actually means purple. And what the Phoenicians were expert at, they were not warriors, they were merchants, tradesmen. They were expert at making the color purple. And we said purple was so valuable and everybody wanted it, and we're going to see why it was so valuable. And that's what they did right off the coast over here. Now, how do you make this color? So there's this snail called the Murex trunculus, and it has this gland in it. Now you break the shell, and the gland, it secretes this pigment. Well, not a pigment yet. It secretes this clear, odorless thing. And then when you mix it with a bunch of other chemicals and it's exposed to sunlight, then you get the beautiful color. So that's how it's done. And there's a really, really great story about how it was discovered. So according to the Phoenician tradition, one day, one of the gods was out for a walk with his dog, and he's out for a walk with his dog, and his dog takes a bite of a snail, and his mouth turns purple. And the god's not taking a walk alone, he's taking a walk with a female, and she says, "Hey, I want clothing in that color." And from that, and that's how the purple was born. And over here, what you see, so I already showed, this is a coin from Tyre. And you see here, they were so proud of being the makers of purple that they have the dog and the snail on it. Now, there's another version of this legend that he bit the snail and his mouth turned red, and then he was bandaged and the bandage turned red, and then the woman saw it and said, "I want a clothing that color." Either way, it's a pretty cool story that they're very, very proud of, and that's according to the legend of how the Phoenicians discovered the color purple. Now, the coins of Tyre, they were very proud they were able to do it, and I want you to notice over here, we have on their coin, they have the snail shell of the Murex trunculus. Here's another example. Here's a goddess. What's right next to the goddess? The snail shell. So something we're very proud of. And now I want to talk about how to make it. So number one is you catch the snails. Now these snails are carnivores, and the way they would catch them, and there are writings about how they used to do it back in the day. They would, you could go on a boat, have a fish, and then the snails are going to come and eat the fish, and then you capture the snails. So you have to get the snails first. Then you have to break open the shell with a hammer in a certain spot by the gland. Then it has a secretion that's colorless and it turns purple when it comes into contact with oxygen. Then you have to add more solutions. There's a lot of chemical reactions that go along with this process. And then when you want it to be blue, you expose it to the sunlight. So you can make blue and purple. There's 3 species of the snail. Some make more purpley colors, some make more, it's a better blue, but it's all related. Now, I said Tekhelet was lost and then rediscovered. So the Phoenicians knew how to make Tekhelet. We had it in the Roman times, and then it was lost. There were rules that were made that the Jews were not allowed to wear Tekhelet anymore. The Jews exiled from the land. They forgot. Now, how was it rediscovered? So it's a beautiful mitzvah. It's one of the 613 mitzvot to have a petil Tekhelet, have a string of light blue on your tzitzit. And we weren't able to do it. And in the 1880s, there was a rabbi, I forgot his name, in Poland that said, I want to rediscover Tekhelet. I want to do this mitzvah. So he left his town and he went to an aquarium and he said, I'm going to study all the animals. I want to figure out what it is. And he concluded, he went to Italy. He concluded that the source of Tekhelet, and in Hebrew, the source is talking about a chilazon, the dam of the chilazon. So he said the chilazon is a squid. And he took this squid and he mixed it with a bunch of other things, heated it up, and he created a beautiful blue color. And he said, I found the Tekhelet, this is what it is. And it was a big controversy. A lot of people didn't agree that it's a squid that makes this, but that's what the Tekhelet that the Torah is talking about. It was really only his followers that followed this. Now, we're gonna, we said 1880s. Now, in the early 1900s, there was this rabbi. His name was Isaac Herzog. He was a chief rabbi of Israel, and he said, I want to figure out the lost Tekhelet. And he did a whole doctorate on it, and he was looking into the snails, and that he actually, what he did is he took some of the Tekhelet that this rabbi in Poland made from the squid, and he sent it to this factory for them to analyze it. And they analyzed it, and they said that the blue color is actually not at all from the squid, because when the rabbi was making the process, it was such high temperatures that it boiled out whatever was actually from the animal. So at this point, the blue was a side effect of the process that he did. So Rabbi Herzog said there's no way that this could be Tekhelet, because it being part of a chilazon is a very important part of the process. It can't just be a byproduct. It can't be it. So he's researching, and then there was a fisherman on a boat. And there was a zoologist that happened to be on the boat too, a French zoologist. And he sees that one of the fishermen, he breaks the snail shell and then he wipes it on his clothing. And he has yellow on his clothing. And then all of a sudden it turns into this beautiful purple color. Now, this French zoologist was familiar with writings of people from the time of the Romans that wrote about Tekhelet. They didn't write exactly we don't know from them exactly what the animal is, but they wrote enough about it that he said, you know what, maybe this snail is what it is. Okay, so now they have this snail that creates beautiful purple. And Rabbi Herzog is investigating, and everyone that he speaks to, every geologist, chemist, they say, there is no way that this snail that is producing this argaman, purple, can produce the blue. It just can't be. It has to be something else. It just can't be blue. It's only purple. We can't get it to be blue. So, okay, he writes up his conclusions. He really thinks that it is, but what's he going to do? He can't get blue. And the Torah says it's like the sky, and purple is not like the sky. So he said, okay, this isn't it, and he passes away. Then his son continues it up. And you have, then later on in the 1980s, in a lab, you have these 2 people working. And they get the purple color, and they're trying to get the blue, and they can't. And then they take it outside, and all of a sudden they see that it turns blue. And it's crazy because it's such a simple thing. All you have to do is go outside. It's like, did no one think to do that in all these years? And when they would make Tekhelet back in the day, they're working by the Mediterranean under the hot sun. So obviously they're outside, but that was what it needed. And in a very specific part of the chemical process, you take the solution outside and it becomes blue. And that's how Tekhelet was discovered, and it answers all of the properties that all of the sources that we need, and it's discovered. Now, other fun facts, So now where do you get it from? If we discovered Tekhelet and now we want to mass produce it and put it on people's CC. So you can get it from the Mediterranean Sea, but it's actually a snail that's protected by the Israel's nature and wildlife reserve. So you can't, if it's protected species, you can't sit and use it to make tons of Tekhelet. So I don't actually know where the source is now, like what, it's not right by the Israeli sea, but maybe I'm sure there's other places that have it. So that I have to look into to see what it is. But it's a fascinating story how it's lost and rediscovered. And it's amazing how back then they knew how to do it and they didn't have all of the.
Can I tell you?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, because my son does the Tekhelet, Joel Guberman.
Really?
And he's at the factory. Yeah. And what they do is that all parts of the Mediterranean goes to Italy, Portugal, Spain, Greece, Turkey, I forget where else, but anyway, they get it from other countries.
However,
in other words, snails come from any part of the Mediterranean, so they get it from countries that they're allowed to take the snails out of.
Right, amazing. Well, thank you for sharing. What luck to have you on us on the Zoom. If you want to add in anything else, feel free to. So that's basically the story. I'm sorry I don't remember exactly the names of the rabbis involved. I'm going to tell you later one of the books that I use.
Rabbi Tevker is the rabbi that was on this original discovery, and then Joel Guberman did it in memory of our son Avi Guberman, who was killed in 1989, and that's when it started. Right. So if you look in the booklet, it will say in memory of Avi David.
Oh wow, amazing. Okay, thank you for that. So I'm going to share a little bit later the book that I have. So the Tekhelet is rediscovered. Now, a few other things that I want to share. So according to the Edict of Maximum Prices issued by the Emperor in 301, the price of purple dyed textiles could be as high as the price of gold or even higher. So it's something that is very, very expensive. Now, when you have something that you need a snail for, and it's a long process and you have to be an expert to know exactly how to do it, and it's something so valuable and beautiful, and not everyone could get access to it, what develops? The counterfeit industry. And there are other ways to make Tekhelet and Argaman, not using the pigments from the gland of the snail. And in Israel, they found in different areas pieces of clothing with different colors, and they're able now very easily to test it in a lab to see what it's made from. So you have here a piece of clothing, wool, and it's vegetable dye, and here you have another piece with purple on it, and it's vegetable dye as well. Now it is very, very hard to tell the difference, but and that's starting with sentence over. So it's very, very hard to tell the difference. So that is even more of why it developed, because people can't really know. However, for the mitzvah of tzitzit, you can't use fake Tekhelet, and must be Tekhelet, which is why no one ever tried to substitute something else, because it really has to be. Here is a picture from the book that I'm going to tell you about a little bit later that shows different plants that could be used to make the pigments. And if you look at it, it's a very deep, rich color. It looks great too. So that's what you could do as a cheaper substitute, what people did. And something, if you follow the news, recently in the news, they said that they discovered in the Timna Valley, which was down south on the way to Elah, they found a fragment of purple fabric from 1000 BCE, which is the time of David HaMelech. And we see how many thousands of years the pigment is lasting. I think if my clothes last that long, you wash it and then it fades a little bit. So it's really nice how it's so many years and the color really, really lasts. Okay. Now I want to ask, where do we find evidence of the Tekhelet industry in Israel? So we said Phoenicia was in Lebanon. And in Israel, they also made Tekhelet, well, really Argaman more the purple color. We found sources for that. So there's this place called Tel Shikmona, which is near Haifa by the coast, right here. And I think this is such a cool picture because, like, you see the bend. When you draw the map of Israel, you always draw it with like the bend. So this over here is Tel Shikmona. It's right by the coast, which makes sense because if you're getting the snails from the coast, you want to be close. And it's really, really small area because, and they don't think anyone really lived there because we said it's a very smelly kind of job. So it was really an industrial area. And how do we really think that they made Tekhelet and Argaman there? Because we found dozens of snails. So some of them broken, some of them are whole, some of them broken in the exact spot that needs to be broken. And also in other places in Israel, there's hundreds of thousands of crushed snails. So it's pretty, that's one of the reasons why they say, oh, it was probably done over there. And here are pottery shards they found in the area with purple on it, when pigment they got from the snails as well. So that's the next trip to Israel and Haifa. You can go visit Tel Shikmona, and it's a wonderful, there's not so much to see there, but the stories are amazing. I can't think of a more appropriate place to sit and talk about Tekhelet than right over there. So that's something really nice that you can do. Here's a little bit of a closer view. And another really cool thing in the area, they have this artificially made pool, which is perfect for the snails to be in and the snails to hang out. So that is also something that was there, which makes them think even more that it was for the production of Argaman. Plus, a lot of the vessels they found were vessels that are used for transport. So they said, okay, this is an area of trade. So that is an area in Israel which they believe was used for the production of Argaman. Now, the Tekhelet factory that was mentioned earlier, it's 20 minutes outside of Jerusalem. You could Google it, and you could go visit the Tekhelet factory. I've gone once, and I always recommend for groups to go there. It is really, really cool. So you see the people that are here have virtual reality goggles, and they show you a video, and they talk about making Tekhelet, and you actually make Tekhelet with them. So you see over here that it's going into this special substance, and you take it outside, and it becomes blue. So it's really, really such a fun thing to do. And especially, I think if I would design my ideal bar mitzvah trip, I think this will probably be on the list, because I think anything that has to do with the mitzvot is beautiful to teach your child. So I would take him to the tefillin factory. Did I ever speak about it? Okay, another Zoom. There's a tefillin factory in Kiryat Arba, which is amazing bar mitzvah boy to learn about tefillin. Now, tzitzit he's probably been doing from younger, but it's still to understand the mitzvot now that he's chayav in mitzvot and Tekhelet. I think it's really a gift to give to a child. It's a gift to give to anybody, and it's a gift to give to ourselves. And we're gonna, I think, just learning about Tekhelet, and we see it referenced so much in the Beit HaMikdash and different kind of things. I think it's really, really great. So I recommend visiting the Tekhelet Center. They are the experts in Tekhelet. The book that I'm going to tell you about in the end that I read about, it had a lot of the people involved in it were from the Tekhelet factory, because they're really experts on the topic. So it's a wonderful thing to do. Now, I want to reference the Megillah again. This is one of the Pesukim we say out loud. And I really don't know if I ever realized that Tekhelet is mentioned in it, because you can't be almost done the Megillah, you're hungry, you want to go eat. But here we have Mordechai Yatzam Lefnei HaMelech B'Levush Machut Tekhelet V'Chud. He is wearing Tekhelet. And in this old manuscript, picture of the Megillah, you see Mordechai wearing a Tekhelet robe. So this specific scene is when Haman is saying Kacha Yaseh La'ish Asher HaMelech Hapetz Bikara. But later on, we know Mordechai is going out in Tekhelet. So now understanding how long the process is, and a bit more about making it, has you appreciate even more. I also want to mention the amount of snails you need dozens of snails to make a few strings. So could you imagine if you're making a shirt or a coat, how many you need? So that also helps us understand why it's so expensive. Okay. Now going back to tzitzit, why a string of Tekhelet? Now the answer is because God said. But the Chachamim, a lot of times, they like giving additional reasons why Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted us to put Tekhelet in the tzitzit. And this is a very, very famous statement in the Talmud Bavli. Now, most people don't know the continuation of it. I have to say that I didn't know it either. Last week, I was talking to my brother, and he goes, Adele, do you know the continuation? I said, no. And then he told me the continuation, and he goes, why do you do a Zoom on Tekhelet? So it's really mind-blowing, the continuation of it. So let's start with the beginning. So Rabbi Meir says, why Tekhelet out of all colors was that the string that God said should be on tzitzit? So he says because Tekhelet is similar to the sea. You look at the sea is blue. The sea is similar to the sky. And then usually, if you continue this association, when you think of the sky, you think of God. When people pray, a lot of times they look up, and like it's just an image associated with God is the sky. Okay, so that's always how I said to myself, that's what it is. And I said, Adele, it continues further. And here's the continuation. The sky is similar to Evan Sapir. Now, what is Evan Sapir? So it's very similar to the word sapphire. So, okay, Evan Sapir, sapphire. Sapphire is blue. It's a beautiful way to continue. That you think of the sky and then you think of the sapphire stone. However, one of the students of Aristotle, 300 BCE, he wrote that the sapphire is a dark blue stone with golden speckles that is used for carving seals. If we look at the stone, it doesn't, other than it being blue, it doesn't have gold speckles, and I can't imagine them carving a seal on this. So is it possible that our understanding of what is sapphire is not the modern day sapphire? So I'm gonna suppose that that's incorrect. So what is this Evan sapphire? So we want to find a dark blue stone with golden speckles. This is a stone over here. It's called lapis lazuli. And in the ancient world, it was so valuable and it was very expensive and they loved it. Look how beautiful it is. It has this dark blue natural color and there's gold on it. So it seems like that this is the stone and we found it. And now I'm going to continue a little bit further, but first I just want to show you some examples. So this is a seal made of lapis lazuli. I remember in art history in Brooklyn College, I learned about it and the teacher said it. And when I spoke to my brother, I go, yeah, lapis lazuli. He goes, how do you know that? I said, I learned about it in college. He goes, how do you remember it? I said, my teacher was good. So I scored major points with my brother because I knew what it was. Here's another example of something made of this stone. You have gold and lapis lazuli. And now I want to continue Rabbi Meir's statement even further and explain why I think it's amazing to really know the full, to not stop where everybody stops. So he says, okay, we have Rakia Domel Evan Sapir. So the sky is similar to lapis lazuli. The Evan Sapir Domel Kiseh Kavod. And the lapis lazuli is similar to God's throne of glory. Dichtiv. So this is a continuation of what Rabbi Meir says. I just put it in a different slide. It says in Sefer Shemot at the end of Parashat Mishpatim, talking about Bnei Yisrael just got the Torah. It says, "Vayireu et Elohei Yisrael v'tachat raglav k'maaseh livnat hasapir u'ch'etzem hashamayim latoher." That they were looking at God, whatever that means, so to speak, because God is not physical. And underneath his feet, they saw this livnat hasapir, this brick of sapir, which we said is not sapphire, it's this lapis lazuli. And like this purity of the sky. Now, the idea of godliness being connected with the stone is not unique to Judaism or this pasuk. We have examples here in blue made of depicting lapis lazuli is this god, and he's being bowed down to by this woman over here. And on top also, you see the stars and you see feet over here. This is another god. They chose to depict their god with the colors of lapis lazuli. And we see here's a temple that the Canaan, a reconstruction of what we believe based on writings that they're giving to Baal, which is one of the gods. And it's made of the same color of lapis lazuli. So when we put it all together, we have Tekhelet is like the sea. The sea is like the sky. The sky is like the stone lapis lazuli. And for the ancient people, that was very familiar because one, they knew what the stone was. Two, they knew it was associated with gods because the surrounding nations all associated with gods. Evan Sapir is the stone is related to the throne of God because it says in the Pesukim that underneath God's feet, so to speak, they saw this stone or this color. And also in Sefer Yechezkel it's mentioned as well. And that's on the tzitzit. So think of all the associations. You see the blue reminds you of this, it reminds you of that, it reminds you of this. And I think it just, for me, it added a lot to know about this like secret valuable stone that we're supposed to get reminded of by the Tekhelet. And I want to just finish up with a question that I never asked myself really until tonight, well, until my brother. What color were the luchot? Now, it does not say in the Torah what color the luchot are, and we're used to drawing them as arches. Now, according to a lot of people, the luchot were probably more like these squares. And you see here a picture that it's blue, it looks like the sapphire stone of today. If whoever made this picture is saying Ibn Sapir is sapphire, and here is from the Ten Commandments movie. Now, we don't know for sure what color the luchot were, but I'm gonna throw out something here. So the second luchot, Hashem tells Moshe, carve yourself 2 luchot karishonim, and I'm gonna write on them. Now, this stone over here, which is the lapis lazuli, the Rashi on this pasuk, he comments, he says, "Herahu machzev snapirnon mitoch aholo, ve'amar lo hapsol tiyeh shacha misham nitashem Moshe harbe." That God, and this is based on the Midrash in Tekhelet, he showed Moshe this quarry of this Even Sapir stone, and he told him, carve out the luchot, bring it up to me. This is something we're also not used to thinking. The second luchot, Moshe brought the stones already up the mountain. And then whatever's left over you could have, and from that Moshe got rich. So this is a Midrash. Now, I really never, it's just a theory here. There's no way we could really know, but it makes sense based on, I think, this whole discussion. Could you picture, how beautiful would the luchot be? Picture the stone as the luchot. We have the blue, the sky, kiseh kavod, this godly color, and then you have the luchot on it. I like that. I think it's such a beautiful idea, and it's something I never thought of. So the idea of it being blue is based on the Midrash. Here is the book that I wanted to talk about. The Bible Lands Museum, a few years ago, they had this exhibit that they called Out of the Blue, Tekhelet. And they printed a book on Tekhelet, and a lot of the pictures that you saw and things that I spoke about were from this book. It was really a fascinating exhibit. You could get the book maybe online or in Israel Today if you're interested in finding out more. And it's really an in-depth discussion of Tekhelet, because it's just something about blue that draws us in and is very intriguing. We started at the class asking, what is it about blue that makes it so popular? And we spoke about a lot of things. We started out by saying that it's the world's favorite color. And then we mentioned Tekhelet in the Mikdash. We had it on the Beit HaMikdash, the Mishkan, was covered in these coverings, and Tekhelet was one of the threads woven in. We said the tzitzit of the Kohen Gadol had blue threads, and tzitzit has a string of Tekhelet, and the similarity in the name shows that you can also serve God. It's not only for the priests. Then we spoke about the Phoenicians, who were experts in dyes and in making the purple. Once you have the purple, you can make the blue, and they would export it all over. We saw a few references in Megillat Esther, where at the Achashverosh's party there was Tekhelet. Mordechai at the end of the Megillah, he goes out in Tekhelet robe. Said it's very, very expensive. It's worn by royalty. It's a very intricate process and takes a long time to make. You need a lot of snails. You need to know how to do it. And because of that, there was the counterfeit industry which develops from vegetable dyes. We said in Israel, if you go to Tel Shikmona near Haifa, you can visit a place where we believe they had a argaman industry going on. I highly recommend the Tekhelet factory, where you can learn all about this in more detail. And also, the more you go into a place with foreknowledge, the more you appreciate it, because then you're not learning from A to Z. You already knew some things, so it helps you even more. So I highly recommend. I think I want to go visit there again. We told the story of the rediscovery of Tekhelet, how it took a very long time and really very persistent people to ultimately discover how we make the Tekhelet from the snails. Then we brought up Rabbi Meir's statement, who he continues it a little further. And he says, the Tekhelet is like the sky, like the sea, which is like the sky, which reminds us of Even Sapir. And I think if someone doesn't know the continuation and they just stop it, it's like the sky, I think it's fine. It still works, throne of God to get to the sky. But I just think it's so enriching and fascinating to have this extra piece about the stone and how it was a valuable stone. It just adds more to it. And then we threw in at the end that it's possible the Luchot HaBerit were made out of this stone. Now, this is the Mishnah that we quoted. And I want to add in 2 more things. One, that I like to ask myself from all of this, how I could use the color blue to bring God into my own lives more. Now, I don't wear tzitzit, so I can't do it by looking at the Petiot Tekhelet. However, I do love the color blue. And I love the associations, how far it goes, and all of a sudden, like the end result is the throne of God. And I think if I one, of course, if I bring it all the way to the throne of God and I think on a daily basis about God's throne, wanted to make me more aware of God and keeping the mitzvot better. But I think even if I just focus on blue for the beauty of it, that in itself is valuable, because one of the amazing things about tzitzit is that the blue is used just for the color, not because there's no pesukim, it's just the color. And I want to throw in one more thing about the snail, which I thought was a beautiful idea. I also read in the book that the snail is a very, very lowly creature. It's on the bottom of the ocean. And this is the snail that it's from its gland using to create something so lofty that's worn by kings and worn by all of Am Yisrael, which is a nation of kings. So it also, I like thinking as well that whatever your state or stature is, you can go and do lofty things, because this small snail is creating the wonderful, wonderful Tekhelet. I hope you enjoyed this small talk and that you now have interesting things to share from connected to Kiryat Megillah. Well, and it's something I think even at the Seudah you could say, because people are usually speaking about ideas of Purim, but I think even ideas of Tekhelet, which is such a small aspect, is nice. And of course, in this week's parasha. Thank you all for joining, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a wonderful Purim. If anyone has any questions or wants to add, feel free.
Yeah, how do we get a copy of this thing? Because I love my son to hear what you had to say.
Oh, I will. So if you search my name on you know what? Write in the chat your email, and I'll send you a link of it once it's ready.
I don't know how to write into chats. Sorry.
Do you want to give your email? Just tell it.
I'll tell you. I'll give you. He's Joel at Tekhelet.com. Maybe you could send it to him.
Okay.
He lives in Ma'ale Adumim, and he's at the factory.
Well, okay. You got it. It's easy enough.
All right.
Thank you. I'm happy you were here. Thank you for what you contributed.
That's all right, but I'm sure he will have more to tell you.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
That was very cool. Thanks, Adele.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Great topic.
Thanks.
Yes. And by the way, you can order Tekhelet. You can order them just separately for men to put on their talesim, or they can get the talis with the Tekhelet on it, or you can get Arba Compass with the Tekhelet on it.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
So they have all of that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
You too.
Bye.
Hag Sameach.